Hello, everyone. I'm Ahmad Syamwiel from Postgraduate English Education, State University of Jakarta. Wanted to share about a book review entitled "Learning and Teaching with Technology in the Knowledge Society: New Literacy Collaboration and Digital Content." Written down by Mizuho Linuma from Tokyo University of Technology. In this book, I'm very uh, excited about how she describes about the millennials, how uh, teacher and learner interact each other on this era of technological globalization. So in this book, there are four chapters. The first is focus on traditional notion of literacy to literacy theories in knowledge society. And the second chapter covers how knowledge building in classroom change when technology is successfully used. And the third and fourth is introducing recent innovation in educational practice, such, such as 3D modeling in uh, teaching. So the what is it? The learner or the students easily understand what the teacher talking about. Okay. Uh, but before we go to the chapters, I want to read some preface from the author. Mizuho Linuma state that development of ICT as well as globalization is impacting education around the world. Typically, literacy refers to reading and writing skills and is considered as an important factor in knowledge building process in the classroom. However, the definition of literacy has expanded to competency using different modes of communication such as visual imaging and IT access. Terms such as media literacy, multimodal literacy, information literacy, and IT literacy proliferate in the discourse of education today. Despite the rapid change of landscape that surrounds education today, questions and on the relationship between literacy and different modes of communications still remain unanswered. How can education use participatory media such as SNS and fairly new mode of communication such as 3D content to foster student deep thinking and creativity? The book will look at social constructivist approach to teaching and learning using technology and how it relates to new literacy from different aspects of potential classroom activity. Okay, going to the first chapter, uh, there are some issue of literacy. For example, discussion about comparative terms for a number of reasons. First, literacy as a technology in the sense that it mediates our communication. And the second, similar to computer technology, literacy is not a neutral form of communication. The third, similar to literacy, ICT is conceived by educators to promote democratic ideals in school settings as opposed to other technology such as telephone or television. For instance, in the early 1970s, the notion that increasing literacy rates promotes economic and social development was used by international organizations such as UNDP and UNESCO as a justification for promoting literacy program in the third world. Today, international organizations such as UNESCO and UNDP use literacy uh, and the rate of population in different countries as indicators to measure human development. They also promote literacy education as an important factor to improving people's life. Uh, and the discussion and issues on the digital literacy, there are some argumentation on the term of great divide. What is it? Goody and Watt states that uh, the evolution and wide diffusion of Greek alphabet together with the rise of Greek civilization are the foundation of Western development. They believe that extensive diffusion of alphabet was assisted by various social, economic, and technological factors. In turn, the diffusion and of the alphabet assisted the birth of economic activity, including revival of trade with the East, and go further to associate the development and diffusion of the Western writing system as the basis of the Great Divide between the oral and the literate culture. The Great Divide as is a term that describes the gap between oral and literal culture. For example, uh, we as a oral and li- literal uh, literal uh, capable society would have a gap with the people or group of people that uh, isn't capable of using literacy. In other words, illiterate ones, and then which is believed to be accounted with the introduction of alphabet. This theory assumed that the diffusion of the alphabet not only assisted economic development in Western civilization, but it also occasioned that the change in Western modes of thinking. However, this argument has been vigorously criticized for its sweeping generalization about the cause of and the effect between the diffusion of literacy and socio-economic development. It also been criticized for its ethnocentrical overtones. Factors, are, factors other than literacy ability of the people determine the course of economic development in 18th century England. For example, Scribner and Cole question the assumption that literacy is a precondition to abstract thinking. They conducted both psychological testing and ethnographical study among the Fai. Fai is a group of people in Liberia, and the research, psychological testing, and ethnographical study in the Liberia res- result showed that no correlation between abstract thinking ability and being literate. The study revealed that although being literate in Phi didn't promote specific skill such as recognition of syllable units or and so on, it did not necessarily develop abstraction, verbal reasoning, and metalinguistic skills. And the term digital divide came into public discussion in 1995 after researcher conducted by Markov Foundation, which revealed that the same division found in society along socio-economic lines is found on land. The digital divide has become a topic of much debate in the last decade, for it's widely believed that having a computer automatically leads to more knowledge, which in turn leads to informed citizenry. And what actually defines the difference between the information haves and the have-nots is questions that is often overlooked and ignored. In this chapter, Mizuo also quoting Burton's and Hamilton's thought about the succinctly summarize the six proposition about the nature of literacy. There are six of it, and you could read yourself. And the second chapter covers how knowledge building in classroom changed when technology is successfully used. In this chapter, development of ICT in the last few decades, in the last few decades, together with the rise of social constructivism, approach to learning has largely influenced education in the 21st century. For example, the global pedagogical standard of the 21st century is shifting from transmitting approach to knowledge building approach. This paradigm shift terms from the emergence of social constructivist approach to teaching and learning, which became popular in the US in 1990s and into the 2000s. In addition, the development of ICT, especially in the internet, is transforming the role of education institution and the division among it. And also in this chapter will how literacy could be integrated in such environment to empower learners and to help them in knowledge building practices. And the third chapters and and the last will uh, discussing about new literacy, collaboration, and technology. Based on the social constructivist view on learning, it is believed that collaborative learning has the potential to increase the quality of learning and teaching discourse, provide alternative explanation, generate multiple solutions to problems, and allow for the inclusion of many different kinds of skills. For example, uh, a student of English literature will not have only English study, but also having other focus. For example, organizing uh, organizing a class, for example, or uh, there, there are a lot of things. For example, also maybe some communication to for marketing maybe, and Mizuo conducting uh, research about uh, teaching with computer support collaborated learning in Japanese university setting, and the result will recommend how new literacy practice can be integrated in the classroom and to develop students collaborative and computer skills along knowledge and of literacy. And next, uh, from the fourth chapter of the book, Mizuho conclude that with respect to literacy, participatory media, including video content, social media content, and other digital platforms, could be described based on the necessary receptive and productive skills. Educators need to pay attention to the specific skill which pertain to mode of communication. Traditional literacy is recommended to be combined into learning activities using ICT and participatory media. This is true when educators deal with other digital content such as 3D models in the classroom. And the most statement I'm pointing out was with thoughtful planning and keen awareness to literacy of different modes of communication, educators can definitely change and empower learners. This is the most statement that have to be listened to every educators in the world. And my commentary about this book, it is good to combine the uh, model of uh, teaching literacy then and now. I mean, in this internet and technological based literacy, but there are uh, some question came out into my mind. Why we have to deal with 3D? Because in my opinion, as long I use 3D modeling, 3D modeling is so hard for me is a hard uh, thing to do. Not hard in the work, but it's time and uh, idea extensive work. Because, for example, modeling a cup of a cup like this from two-dimensional form to into three-dimensional form from zero to uh, be 3D model is not as easy as we think. So if a teacher or educators tend to try using 3D modeling, they have to spend their time more uh, rather than focusing on how the student or the learner get the idea of the uh, literacy, but the the teacher will uh, get lost their time to making the 3D models. So, in my opinion, it would be a waste of time, waste of resource if there are resources because I believe every teacher now having a personal computer, but if they couldn't make the 3D model as good as possible, the there will be kind of uh, it's hardly said that it's embarrassing themselves. So I think if the 3D modeling is a good idea, but if the teacher or lecturer doesn't have the capability to make those 3D models, it would be better using the other method such as video or making some examples about what they try to explain rather than designing 3D models or those things that in my opinion is hard. This is what my statement is. And the conclusion, uh, the collaboration is key framework mentioned between by 21st century skill partnership that needs to be integrated into education. And the second, an engaging teacher has a potential to lead and help learner become responsible information literate member in a large global community, and digitalization may be the indication of the fact that ID access should not be seen just as a tool that support higher order thinking skill, but should be seen as an integrated part of the learning practice. And 3D based learning might work in language learning. Thank you. If there is some question, you could be write it down in the comment below. And if you felt that this video is uh, good, give a thumbs up. Thank you. I'm Ahmad Syamwiel. Uh, Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.